you're gonna be confused of how they got that. You know, where hey means praise or to give prayer or to the bow. You're gonna be confused when you see a F instead of the man, right? So you see that, and you deal with the meaning of hey, you're gonna be confused. You're like, that looks like an F. I don't see how they got that. But when you go into the early, it's like, wow, it's easy. It's understanding. You look at a man with his hands going up. It looks like he's praying. It looks like he's praising. So sometimes you do have to look at the early characters to get the understanding of why they created some of these letters like that. Because they created the letters based off the meaning of a word previous when we spoke orally to each other before we wrote anything down, right? So we're done with hey. And our next Hebrew character is a Hebrew character that's famous and all Yasharallah is wa. So the wa is a very, very, famous Hebrew character, easily to know, easily to recognize when you deal with wa. Let me write it a bit bigger here, a bit better, so all Israel can see. Famous, and wa was developed from the word, wow, or wow, right? When you deal with wa, it's a tent peg. So you're starting to see a whole circle of like, this deals with a tent, this deals with a tent, this deals with a tent, because even our first temple, or our first, basically our first altar to the Lord was a tabernacle, and the tabernacle was nothing but a huge tent with giant walls on the out of it, so no one could get in. So you gotta understand, we're nomadic people. Before we start dealing with, getting more civilized, Israel wasn't a nation of people until it left out of Egypt. So before, just like when you deal with Gad, that's why it was easy for Gad to, because we're people that travel a lot, more of a sojourner, if you would, make a word of like sojourning. When you deal with Exodus, I believe it's 22:25, when it says your brother, if he wax poor, a sojourner, or though he be a stranger. That's how we were back then. We would sojourn. And when you deal with Gad, the Native Americans, they're the same way. It's in their nature to be sojourners, right? When you deal with the Mayans, they did build temples, just like when you deal with Abraham. He did have a, I wouldn't say a kingdom, but he did have an outpost or community of sorts, because Abraham had a military. Abraham had a guard, as a sense. So Abraham definitely had an outpost where people were. They probably had buildings there. People were established there, right? Because Abraham had servants, But Gad, they were sojourners. So they went place to place. And they would use all types of tents. Easy to build up, easy to break down. So when you deal with the word wa, it's a tent peg. It's very, essential to our heritage when you deal with the tent peg, because that's what we did all the time in tents. Warfare, when we go out, we had tents. When we were just nomadic people dealing with tribes, we had tents. We took tents everywhere, because everywhere was our home. The whole earth is ours. And even Gad knew this. Jerusalem is the most valued land of all, the mother of all of us, but the whole earth is ours, right? So that deals with wa, and the next letter, right? The next character is Zan, or Zan, or Zion. I gotta check real quick. Yep, I was right. Zon. Don't ever be, fearful to go back and check. You want to be correct, especially when you're dealing with your language, your heritage. You got to cherish it. You want to be correct, right? It's not about being, right all the time or look like a smart person. If you have to go back and check, just make sure you check, right? You want to give people right information. So the Z, which I'm gonna have to go over the Z, because the Z, people always get mixed up with the second favorite letter of the Hebrew culture, right? So this is Zon, and I'm gonna tell you why Zon is like that. I'm gonna check real quick. And I was right. So Zon deals with a hoe, because we're people are like agriculture. We like hoeing, tilling the land. When you deal with Issachar, right? Your Sheshachar. So when you deal with Issachar, all right? Issachar, his name literally means for hire. He's for hire. When you deal with like Issachar, he till that land, he plows that land, he makes maize, grew all types of guava. They growing poppy seeds now, because Esau, he really wants a lot of these opium and these opioids, but they were some of the best ever when it comes to irrigation. When you look at the Mayans, some of the Mayans had cities, like literal cities on lakes, and they had like floating gardens around the lakes. So check that up. Issachar, certain Mayans or certain natives in this land, they had floating gardens. It was beautiful to look at that. It was great, because that's how we are. We look at our people, man. We the best, even back then. Because Zon deals with agriculture, irrigation, just tilling the land. That's why, when he deal with Zebulon, I think it was the tribe of Zebulon that did that, but I gotta check. It might have been the Aztecs. I gotta check it. It may be the tribe of Zebulon, which is down in South America. And if it was, it makes way more sense, because first letter in their name, Zon, and it means to hoe, when they till the land. And I'm gonna show you why. When you look at the Z, you're like, how is that dealing with agriculture? But I'm gonna show you just in a second. Right. Display it. So now that you're looking, that looks like a hoe. You see the little arms at the side, but that looks like a hoe. I exaggerated the little hands in the middle to get, just to get my point across. But I'm very sure if I erased that, you would know that was a hoe, because a hoe has two sides. Also, when you deal with the word Zion means a weapon. So when you think like Zion and you think the word Zon, you're like, how do they get a weapon out of the word Zion and they use Zon? When they use another character, truthfully, not really. When you deal with certain prophecies in the Bible, the prophecy dealing with Ezekiel and Isaiah, when our people, it says, when the nations come, they'll beat their plows into holes, and they'll beat their pruning hooks into fishing hooks, right? Sometimes, our people were so poor, or when we had an uprising, or when we needed to fight and go to warfare, our weapons were makeshift weapons out of gardening tools. When you deal with Levi, the tribe of Levi, what is a machete? A lot of people, they fantasize a machete as a tool, a weapon of warfare. But a machete is not really a weapon of warfare. the machete is a weapon, is an agricultural weapon. When you want to go into a forest and you want to cut down vegetation, you bring a machete. A machete is wide, it's thin, and it's broad. It's a cutting tool. If you want to kill somebody in warfare, you would pierce them. You want something more like a gladius. It's sharp edge, right, where you can stab. Stabbing somebody will bring a higher mortality. You have a higher chance of killing somebody if you give them a stabbing wound than a cut. But our people, you know, we would, you know, a spear is still, you know, like a fishing hook. It still can be a weapon that can pierce and kill somebody. But when you deal with a machete, the reason why I brought it up is because the tribe of Levi, that was a very iconic weapon when they used it against, you know, the French in their revolution, the machete. Because previously they were in the fields chopping down vegetation with the machete. But when they came up with the uprising, the machete stopped being an agricultural tool and a weapon of warfare easily, just like that. So that's where the word Zon can be used in the word Zion, because our people will sometimes rise up and beat our pruning hooks, our fishing hooks, into spears, and also, you know, beat our plow holes into, you know, into weapons as well. Now, oh, also, I'm gonna wait until I get into the second iconic Hebrew character, right? I'm gonna wait till I get the second one until I show you where people can mistake some of these characters. But let's go on to Ha. It's not Ha like our earlier character, right? It's Ha, right? And I'm gonna show you why, right? So when you think of this character, this letter, right, is Ha. It really looks like a full H with an extra line, about extra 2 lines, right? It looks like a ladder, right? But it has a different meaning. I'm gonna go over this quickly. You can mistake these sounds. Now earlier I showed you where you can mistake character letters, but you can mistake these 2 sounds, right? And I'm gonna give it to you in this analogy. So there is Ha and Ha. So you see that? You have Ha and Ha. So it's a difference between Ha and Ha. To us, you know what I'm saying? It's the same thing, man. You just add a little oomph on it, right? Not really. But I'm gonna give it to you in this way. This is like a half of this. You see that? And I'm gonna show you in a more broader sense. The reason why this is Ha, it's like it's half of Ha. So half of Ha is just Ha, right? So, and it shows in the character as well, right? So that looks like half of Ha. It looks like half of the other character. So if it looks like half of the other character, try to remember and try to put in your mind that it's half the sound. So this is Ha. This is Ha. Ha. But this is Ha. It's simple. It's half the sound. It's Ha. But this is Ha. Right? With the CH. Ha. And this is half of that. It's just Ha. Right? So you might get you won't get the characters mixed up, but you'll get the sound mixed up. So make sure you don't do that, right? So, Ha. Let's see if we can go over that. Right? Let's see if Ha has a meaning behind it. So Ha has a meaning. And the meaning of Ha it means a wall, right? It means a tent wall. Just like I brought up previously about a tabernacle, and how we had tabernacles, we will have walls around the tabernacle. You're starting to see us coming full circle, dealing with the tents, the tabernacle, and how we dealt as a nomadic people previously, right? So, this is ha and ha. No, ha sideways looks like a wall. It looks like a wall. Now, I've never seen people. If you ever been and dealt with construction, when you put in sheet wall or sheet rock, or if you see the wall is exposed, you can see the beams behind the wall. And when you see the beams behind the wall, you can see the wood sticking out, and it looks just like that. It has the beam, the empty space, the beam, the empty space, the beam. So it looks like a wall. So this is the wall of the outer tents. That's where you get the character ha from, right? So let's speed it up a little bit. So another character is tat. Tat. And it looks like a circle with a plus in the middle of it. It's tat, right? So this is tat. And when you deal with the word tat, it looks like a wicker or clay basket. Now, when you look in the middle of a basket, right, deep down in the basket, it looks just like tat. When you look down in the basket, especially when you look at like baskets made out of wood, or made out of, you know how people, they'll wove baskets out of like vegetation, like some green vegetation, and you look at the bottom, they'll have the two sticks crossed so that it'll give it its foundational support. That's what it is. So I'm gonna kind of like exaggerate it for you so you can, you know, get a visual, right? Right? So this is the whole basket, and this looks like the inside of the basket. So that's where tat comes from. It looks like the inside of a wicker or inside of a basket. And tat, that's how it was developed. You know, it just looks like a circle with a cross in the middle of it. Because when you look at it, or you look at a basket, like a traditional basket that's made out of vegetation or made out of just wood, or dried out wood and dried out vegetation, they have to put two sticks in the bottom of the basket, and they wove it around the two sticks, and the two sticks are the foundational support, so nothing falls straight through the basket. So that's where tat come from. Now, here's another Hebrew character that is very popular, and it's Yah. And you can get Yah mixed up quickly with Zah that we went right over. So, so the only difference between Yah and Zan is that there's a line in the middle of the Z. So if you're not paying attention, if you're not attentive, or if you're not being, you know, if you're not looking, you can mix up Zah with Yah. And you can get these characters mixed up, but the sound, well, is different. You know, it's easy to mix up these characters, just like, you know, Daleth and Ra, like I went over earlier, even though we'll get into Ra later and why. And I pulled it up, you know, Daleth, when you deal with that, even though I use personally the character depiction that's written in the Old Testament Hebrew website, which is just a triangle, is because me personally, I have problems beginning and mixing those two up. And this is another character, or another two characters that I always mixed up and got, conscrewed and entwined. And I had inverted or switched up, right? So the one with the line in it, the Z with the line in it, is Ya. And the regular Z is Za, right? So just kind of get in your mind, the regular Z is Za, which is easy because it deals with the Hebrew, English alphabet, which is Za. But you deal with Ya, you're gonna be like, okay, this has a line in it. Just try to remember it's Ya, right? So let's see a little bit more about Ya, right? And check it out real quick. So, when you look at Ya, you're going to be confused dealing with the middle character, the middle age character. So I'm going to show you the early and why they call it Yad. It's, the Ya, the sound is Ya, but the character name is Yad, right? Right? So you see that? That's Yad. And when you look at Yad, it looks like a hand. It looks like a hand. It looks like, it looks like a Lego man hand, right? It looks like a Lego man hand. And that's where they get Yad from. So when you think of Yad, it means hand. It means arm, right? So it just means your hand. So that's Yad. When you deal with the early character gives more clarity on why they chose Yad as its name, because it means hand, right? But now we're dealing with the middle character, the middle age character, right? The Assyrian captivity. It looks like a Z. It looks like a Z with a line in it. So just remind yourself, I'm gonna show you now, most high willing, if I keep doing these and I go deeper into them, right? So Yad is just a Z with a line in the middle of it when you deal with the middle. But when you deal with the early, it literally looks like a Lego man hand, right? A Lego man arm. So now we're dealing with another Hebrew character, right? Which is Kaf, right? Kaf is easy. It looks like a K. To me personally, it literally is a K. So take it as that. So Kaf, it's like a K. So it's not really hard to you can start seeing that the English language took a lot from the Hebrew and its characters, especially the certain Assyrian characters, but mainly, definitely the sound, because the sound of Kaf is Kaf. So let's see what the meaning of Kaf is. So Kaf is like the open palm of your hand. So when you look at the early version of Kaf, which I'm gonna write right here, right? That's the early version of Kaf. And when you look at it, Kaf means the palm of your hand. And when you look at the palm of my hand, you start to see that V, right? You see the V of Kaf. So you're looking at Kaf and you look in the V, it's very, you can see how they made that analogy. Just the palm of your hand. And when you look at it, it's the bottom right here, and here's the V that's coming up, right? So that's cuff. Also, cuff looks like a menorah. It looks like a menorah, but that's where you get cuff from. And later, cuff, it was developed into looking like a K. So this is why you need the early and the middle together. It's almost like the Old and New Testament. You know, you need both if you want to find out the meaning of why it was named cuff. So now we're dealing with another Hebrew character, which is lam, right? Lam. And lam, this looks like a tilted L, right? I'm gonna exaggerate it more. Drawn so evenly, right? So lam looks like a tilted L, right? So when you deal with lawal, you deal with L a lot, you're gonna see that. You're gonna see that, right? You're gonna see that L, and it just means la. It's lam. And let's find out why they name it lam. So lam is developed from a staff, and lam, or when you deal with the word lamad, lamad means teaching. When you deal with the staff, that's why in Proverbs it says, don't spare the rod of your child, because you're teaching them a lesson. You're not beating your child because you don't like them, and if you are, the Most High is going to deal with you. But if you're beating your child because they did something wrong, you teach them a lesson to correct them. So lamad is a staff, and you're saying, well, it looks like an L, right? But I'm gonna show you. Lamad in the early Hebrew, right? It looks like a upside down staff. Still an L though, right? So it looks like a L, right? It looks like a lowercase L. But if you flip it, like I'm about to, you flip it, it looks like your old granddaddy cane, man. That same cane that your grandma used to smack you up on top of the head, man. The same cane your grandmother used to smack you in the back with, right? Oh man, this saying I got like 2 minutes left. So if it cuts off, don't be shalom. So we got 2 minutes. If this cuts off, just know I'll come right back on. But when you deal with lam, it looks like the same cane, you know, old people deal with, because when you deal with the elders, man, elders are very essential. This is why you must respect them. Elders are very essential in any society, especially in ours. So, in a sense, they got their own character in the Hebrew alphabet, but it's a cane. A cane or a staff or a stick represents power, rulership. Your elders have power and rulership over you. That's why in I believe in Timothy's in the New Testament it says, ye young men, submit yourselves to the authority of the elder. So you got to submit yourselves because they have what? Rulership. Why? It says because they watch over your souls. So dealing with lam is a cane. These people, the elders, they watch over our souls. So we have to respect them in that regard, that they have the rulership. Elder Zabak is my teacher. I listen to him. You know, even though I feel like sometimes certain brothers, not him personally, but other elders that are over me, they might be hard. But it says you can't. It says don't hate the rough teacher. Don't always love the nice teacher, but it says don't hate the austere teacher. I got to look at that verse. But you gotta love those teachers too, because they're teaching you a lesson, man. Because some of these men that woke up, you know, they've had it hard in this truth. You know, back then when you deal with One West, you couldn't get on the line until, you know, years of learning and